like sort of the surface synopsis is like this is obviously a horror movie and it's about a woman who disappears and then all of a sudden shows up at her friend's doorstep one day and she shows up with this, like you said, she shows up with a story. And over the course of that evening, uh, as she's telling her friend the story about why she's gone and what happened to her, it's a story about this sort of dark force that's sort of that can almost bring her nightmares to life. And now, uh, as she's telling her friend this story, she realizes this force might now be coming for both of them. And what that sort of is invoking is, like you said, it's about the power of storytelling. And it's not always, that's often invoked as like a beautiful thing and a desirable thing, but sometimes it can invoke terror. It can conjure all kinds of fears. And I think the theme is like we have to all be very careful. We're surrounded by stories, right? So we have to be very careful about the stories we let in because some of those stories can quite literally possess you. So that's I think you're right. It is absolutely comes back to the power of storytelling.
Really cool. Right now, I'm in a building and I'm the only tenant because everybody is August and in Europe everybody leaves. So, and then I saw the movie last night by myself and I was terrified. So,
Well, I'm glad that was the intended effect, not to terrify you in a bad way, but to entertain you.
why do you think we, in general, we in our society, we're fascinated by horror stories?
Wow. I think it honestly, I wish I knew. There's something primal about it. I think as kids, when I was a kid, we it was a very different time, and sort of my generation was go out and play. So we would go out and play. We would find a group of kids, and we would play with each other, but we'd also tell stories to each other, and we would try to scare each other. And it's funny, those stories we tell each other, they stick to me even today. Like stories that were told to me or scary things that happened to this one guy who we may or may not know is a friend of a friend. Uh, those kinds of stories stick with me to this day. One friend of mine, we were very young. He said, "Look, there was this guy who he got on an escalator in the I live in New Jersey, so a lot of the stories revolve around malls. So it was like, okay, so we went to a mall. He went to a mall and the escalator malfunctioned, and he got ground up into the gears of this. So literally this is like decades ago. To this day, whenever I step on an escalator, I am super deliberate about stepping over the edge and I practically jump off the thing. And that's just muscle memory, right? And little stories like that, if you let them in, they take root and they kind of become a part of who you are and what you're afraid of.
I think one of the reasons as well, another reason is that all the anxiety and the fears that we feel in a movie theater watching a horror movie, it feels very safe in a way because you control the
Yeah,
chaos. So you're there
right.
controlling the chaos and going, wow. So it's fun. It's fun.
It's catharsis, right? There is this notion of like going into a movie. I mean, for me, going into a movie theater, those lights going down, it's kind of like it is like going to church. You're all together sharing this experience, and you do feel a sense of like when you're in a theater, at least, and people are scared of the same thing, a sense of like we're all alone, but we're together. And you can leave that theater with that shared experience, and you feel like, all right, you can sort of. I remember the first time I went to see Blair Witch Project in the theater, people were flipping out at the end. And we all just kind of left and we looked at each other for kind of comfort, like, what the hell just happened? And that kind of experience is what makes horror movies so great, right? It scares us, but then we can seek comfort from each other. So that's horror movies at their
Yeah.
best.
If I'm not mistaken, this is your first film, I think. No.
It's my
Um,
first feature. Yeah.
your first
Yeah.
feature. So how
Mhm.
was the experience and how do you feel about it that is going to open in a few days in North America?
I yeah, no, thank you. I feel great about it. I feel excited. I feel about it being released and people seeing it and people hopefully kind of, connecting with it and vibing on it. But you know, as far as the making of it, uh it's 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 a lot of work, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but it's also one of the most rewarding things I've ever done because every day you make a plan and you plan things out like to the finest detail, and then by the first day every plan you've made needs to change. So it's the plans you make, the way you prepare, and then really it's the way you adjust. And it's all through all those adjustments, you're really trying to kind of say, okay, I need to make these changes, but what does the story need, and how can I make this change in a way that serves the story?
The two actresses, I thought they were fabulous. I mean, both of them, one
Fantastic.
reacting great. Where I know that they've done some other work, but why did you decide to go with these two actresses?
Well, the short answer is because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Like when you see them performing and you're trying to picture the character and you see people who just not only, they understand the movie, they understand what we're trying to do and delivering the lines and sort of almost embodying these characters. It felt like um such a gift because I've heard so many people who struggle to find the right, but there really was never any doubt that our two leads were like the leads, and it was they were wonderful in ways that are quite obvious in the final product, but they were also at every stage like helping to inform how the characters dressed, how the lines the characters read, and so they were instrumental in the success of the final product.
And they both were, in my super, I forgot the word, super believable.
Hmm.
It was not a movie. They were really like, wow, like,
Yeah. Yeah, and they both had different challenges, right? Because one had to really deliver a lot of lines, had to like show a lot of like emotion, like repressed emotion, and then the other lead had to really kind of receive all of that. And you had to believe that she's like absorbing this like bizarre, wild tale and just trying to digest it in real time. And they both did just an amazing job. I couldn't be happier.
they were super together. I loved it. Loved the way the dynamic among the two actresses. Let me ask you, there's a notion, maybe I'm mistaken, that horror movies are very profitable because they're not super expensive, and but
Hmm.
we just go and watch them and they can become part of our culture. Uh,
Yeah,
would you comment on that? And
I hope so. I mean, I think though, I think to your point, I think what horror movies have is it's weird. They're like a genre, right? Which sort of implies that it's a niche, but everyone loves horror. Everyone is afraid, and everyone goes to horror movies to sort of feel that fear and then sort of exercise that demon, exercise that fear as well. And that process is something that's very primal, and I think we all feel it. But there are also a small group of fans who just, and I count myself proudly as one of them, they just love all things horror. They're always looking for something that's a little different or that maybe tries to sort of invoke the same effects but in a different way. And it's almost like they become connoisseurs. And that's where horror fans and folks who make horror movies are always trying to like, oh, I bet you've never seen this before. You're always trying to like challenge each other. So it's a very sort of accepting, it's a big tent. There are a lot of folks making horror movies and a lot of folks making really interesting, cool movies. So I just think it's an exciting place to write and to make films and to get audience response.
for me, I was scared throughout the story that she was telling, but also by the sound effects. They were like,
I am I'm so happy you brought that up because that was definitely something that we worked very hard, and the folks at Post 237 tremendous job of like really really creating like a soundscape that was like supporting the movie without being too obvious. But there is a way that the sound is almost another character in the room with these two people when they're talking. So I couldn't be happier that you're commenting on the sound design because we really did work hard on that. So I'm
Yeah,
glad that you
it was like
appreciated it.